of March 2024. This is the day. Good morning. This is Morning Cafe. My name is Freddie Ndimuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
Oh yes, I'm yours truly, Stanley Nyeringeta. Speaking of coffee, later on we test some rice and liver. Prepare your palate for that. But then, I did this on Monday. I have to do this again today.
Arsenal. Yes.
Coffee queen.
We've qualified for the quarterfinals of the Champions League.
Oh, yes.
Yes, it's something to applaud for all Arsenal fans. I know you're enjoying this week. It's a beautiful week. It's a very beautiful week. And whatever reason the director may want to dampen this for us, it cannot happen. We are actually on top of the table in the EPL. And when it comes to the Champions League, we are actually at the quarterfinals. Timu zingine ndogo ndogo kama Manchester United watangojea miaka kadhaa. Yes, however long you wait, the victory is even sweeter.
Oh yes.
The longer you wait.
You've waited for this. Speaking of waiting, let's take a look at the headlines and see what is expected in the newspaper review later on.
On the Standard this morning, Ruto walks a tightrope on Haiti mission. That's a big headline on the Standard.
Moving on the Daily Nation, no reprieve over housing pay cuts.
Msajili tajiri abanwa. Habari kuu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo.
Moving on the Star, Haiti Prime Minister resigns, funding violence threatened mission. We'll be getting to know what this means for that country.
The People Daily, 6 students on their own. Quite concerning there on the front page of the People Daily.
Right, moving on, matters business. Shilling rallies to 8-month high, cuts debt by 800 billion cash shillings. That's on the Business Daily.
We'll be waiting to see if at all it will affect fuel prices come tomorrow, the 14th of the month. Let's cross over and see the other headlines from the region. The Daily Monitor in Uganda, the profits from small businesses, matters business. Big headline in Uganda this morning. The other paper in Uganda, Mwananchi in Tanzania.
Kuzaliana tishio la ukuaji uchumi. Swala kushangaza hayo.
Yes, back to Uganda. Al-Shabaab, USA sanctions Ugandan farm. Matters terrorism.
Back to Tanzania, The Citizen, how Tanzania can lessen poverty through growth.
Well, those are the headlines this morning. We'll be looking at them in depth in a short while. For now, let's take a look at the traffic and weather.
All right, on the traffic, nothing major really to report on. So this is this particular road. Just before you actually, as you head into Lusaka Road, the yellow patch means some bumper to bumper kidogo tu as you getting into that roundabout, heading to Langata. Langata Road looks quite clear, but well, other roads around and heading to CBD and its environs are quite clear, as you can see. Let's take a look at something else here. So this is the weather according to the Kenya Meteorological Department, a whole outlook from yesterday all the way to the 18th. And they say sunny and dry conditions. Most parts of the country can expect predominantly sunny and dry weather during this period and expected rainfall. However, some areas may experience light to moderate rainfall, including central highlands, as well as the southeastern lowlands and the coast. So the high daytime temperatures, high average daytime temperatures exceeding 30 degrees Celsius are anticipated in several counties. This include Turkana, Samburu, Marsabit, Mandera, Wajir, Isiolo, Garissa, Tana River, Lamu, Kilifi, Mombasa, as well as Kwale. And just more context on that. In Nairobi right now, it's 17 degrees Celsius. And the weather for today, no umbrellas for today. Just, you know, today is one of those days you're sun-kissed and everything, as high as 28, and do expect as low as 17. That is the weather for you this morning. Let's take a look at what to expect in our diary for you today. So now, first off, on the diary, we're actually expecting the doctor's strike. But then, according to the Secretary of Kenya Medical and Practitioners Dentist Union, said that it is expected. So the strike notice ends as of today midnight, and then they begin the industrial action as of tomorrow. Right, let's flip the page matters courts now. And the sentencing of Joseph Irungu alias Joey is expected to happen today. So this is after the High Court on Friday postponed the sentencing. So this was confirmed by Lady Justice Grace Nzioka, stated that changes were made because crucial documents that would have assisted the court in concluding its final decision were filed late. And from that, so a joint parliamentary committee tasked with considering, that's now the next page, matters the NADCO report. So the joint parliamentary committee tasked with considering the amendment bills by the National Dialogue Committee is expected to meet today to firm up the framework for considering the 8 amendment bills that the bipartisan team fronted. So this even as the committee co-chaired by Hilary Sigei, as well as George Murugara, has less than 45 days to submit a report on amending the laws the referendum way or parliamentary way. And just other matters not highlighted on the news diary, but what to expect as of today. Still in Bunge, so the Senate plenary will today commence and decide on the proposed impeachment of Kisii Deputy Governor Robert Bonda. So the hearing comes after the House yesterday, on Tuesday, resolved to alter its meeting schedule for today and as tomorrow, which will mark the final day for the Senate to vote on whether to support or oppose Monda's impeachment. That is the news diary for you. Finally, let's take a look at today in history and take you all the way back to 2017. This is in Ethiopia, where the death toll from the collapse of a landfill on the outskirts of Addis Ababa rose to 62, with dozens of people still missing. That is the news diary for you, as well as today in history. There you have it, back in 2017. And that cues us to kuingia kwenye magazetini sasa.
Straight to the front page of the Standard this morning. Ruto walks a tightrope on Haiti mission. That's a big headline on the front page of the Standard. Money matters. The US has pledged more than 41 billion shillings for Kenya to deploy officers to the war-torn country, but evacuated its citizens at the same time. Ruto says it is a service to humanity, but the price could be too high for the police. The story is on page 6, and questions are being asked. Is it all about the money? The other story given prominence, we featured it on our diary this morning. Joey Irungu in the footsteps of a murderer. Today is Judgment Day. Today the High Court will bring to an end one of the country's high-profile murder cases. With the sentencing of Joseph Irungu, Monica's family is hoping for a death sentence for the man who snuffed life out of their kin, but the killer is pleading for leniency. Remember, 2 people were charged for Monica's murder, but the court acquitted journalist Jackie Maribe, who has gone on to be appointed head of communication in the Public Service Ministry. Meanwhile, Joey is awaiting his sentencing today. Matters Health also feature on the front page of the Standard this morning. A small headline there on the bottom right corner. Health access for all dithers as crisis looms, as health providers across all cadres seek employment out of the country. And with the pending health workers' strike, it can only get worse for country's attempt to provide UHC, or universal health care. Matters Health remain a big talking point, especially with the doctor's strike and the expected deduction of contributions to the SHIF, that's the new Social Health Insurance Fund scheme. Meanwhile, questions are being asked about NHIF, and remember yesterday private hospitals had already declared they are not accepting the NHIF card as of now because of pending claims that are yet to be paid by government. More highlights are on the top strip of the Standard this morning. Leaders shudder at thought of party elections. Stories on page 7. They've used an image of Raila Odinga there, indicating that ODM is one of those parties. The other one must be UDA, the top 2 parties in Kenya currently. Will they carry out their elections? Counties to get 50 billion shillings less revenue. They've been fighting for a lot of money. 439 billion shillings, but it would appear they will get probably 389 billion instead. In business matters, Tanchart issues 11 billion shillings dividend. And in sports, Leopards celebrate 60 years in style. The Leopards Ingwe. Ni team ya director Emmanuel Ingwe. 60 years later. Villa Stadium. Now they're building a number of stadia, so probably they should be given one to call home. On the back page of the Standard Matter Sports, Atletico Simeone 6 to laugh last. Draws for the remainder of the competition on Friday. And this is Matters Champions League. Yes, Champions League football. At least Arsenal are already through to the quarterfinals now. And you can read a lot more on the other teams that are hoping to progress in the same competition. That's the Standard this morning.
On the Daily Nation, the screaming headline there is no reprieve over housing pay cuts. And they say bill passed senators yesterday, yet again, threw Kenyans under the bus after they shot down proposals that sought to cap housing levy deductions at 2,500 cash shillings, as well as peg the amount to be paid at 1.5% of an employee's net salary. So this means workers and their employees will resume paying high rates when the bill comes to law. That is on page 7. And just more context on that, taking a glance of what is highlighted. So on this page, they say, cap the housing levy deductions at 2,500 and levy to be at rate of 1.5% of the employer's net salary. And number 3, exemptions for people with mortgages not considered part of the act. So those living in rural areas with certificates of title in their names, persons engaged in agricultural, farming or business activities whose annual turnover is less than 288,000 cash shillings per year. And it was a whole marathon house business that went all the way to around 6:50 p.m. yesterday in the Senate. That is the front page of, or rather on page 17, the main headline. But just bottom of this, the front page of Daily Nation, matters graft, and they say officials cash and property frozen in graft probe. So the High Court has frozen assets, among them 106 parcels of land, 17 vehicles and cash belonging to a senior official at the Ministry of Lands suspected to have acquired corruptly. Justice Esther Maina allowed EACC to preserve the properties belonging to Felix Mecha Nyakundi, who has been pictured there. On the right, still on matters land, evict Uhuru Kin in 7 days, police boss told. The police boss is Michael Mushiri, has 7 days to evict a company owned by former Gatundu Member of Parliament Ngegi Muigai from a 443-acre piece of land in Thika. A task that his predecessors have been unable to accomplish for a whole decade. And speaking of matters, courts on the bottom there, just below the parenting piece, guarantors want clerics' property sold to recover 5.8 million cash shillings Sacco land, was on page 12. But more headlines are on the top scroll of this paper. Matters that the country has been talking about for a long time now. First of all, the Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi picture there on the front page of this paper. And they say, Mudavadi, why we settled on Raila for AU job, on pages 4 and 5. And on the second page, you'll read that Kenya holds Haiti. Police deployment after Prime Minister resigns. So latest development derails plan, according to PS. On page 2, let me just scroll into that. And they say Foreign Affairs Principal Secretary Koreri Sing'oei said that the departure of the PM had altered the situation on the ground, as there is no holding government to work with the mission yet. And there's one of the dailies, Fred, that has pictured an egg on the face of Kenya now. We'll be getting to see that.
We'll be looking at that shortly.
Yes.
Kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo, Inazungumzia msajili tajiri ambaye amebanwa sasa. Afisa anayelipwa mshahara wa 1,140 asema alipata utajiri wake kupitia kilimo. Mahakama imetwaa ploti na mashamba 106, magari 17 na pesa taslimu za afisa mkuu katika wizara ya ardhi, mali inayoshukiwa alipata kwa njia ya ufisadi. Jaji wa mahakama kuu Esther Maina aliruhusu EACC kutoa mali ya Felix Mecha Nyakundi kwa muda wa miezi 6. Je, kutaendaje? Pale chini kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo kuna picha ya Rais William Ruto alipokutana na viongozi wa vyama vya wanabiashara, Kenya Private Sector Alliance na Kenya Association of Manufacturers katika ikulu ya Nairobi hapo jana. Vidokezo zaidi kwenye ukurasa wa mbele. Hatimaye Joy kujua hatma leo. Kwingineko, waliopofuka kuacha ulevi. Habari zaidi, Putin kifua mbele, uchaguzi ukinukia. Na pale juu kwenye ukurasa wa mbele, masuala ya Haiti, mpango wa Kenya Haiti sasa hatarini. Kindiki asisitiza safari bado ipo licha ya waziri mkuu kujiuzulu. Lakini kwenye spoti, Fataki Atletico ikialika Inter leo 16 bora. Ni vita vya kuwania ufalme wa klabu bingwa barani Ulaya. Na hizo ndizo habari zilizopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa Taifa Leo.
Taifa Leo, let's go to People Daily and talk about matters students. And they say 6 students on their own. So this is on matters health and termination of Edu Afya medical scheme with no alternative exposes learners with parents now forced to dig deeper into dry pockets to pay bills. More on page 4. Let me give you a context on this bit. So at a glance on this story, they say it is matters change of plans. So the education PS, Kipsanga said the funds will have been utilized for Edu Afya, have been dispersed to schools as part of capitation. So this program, which was launched in 2018, was meant to ensure learners have access to necessary healthcare services, which also relieved parents and guardians from the out-of-pocket medical expenses, as well as promoted retention in schools. On this page 4, they quote quite a number of numbers and figures that you can read into that. There are other highlights on the front page of this paper. Just below that, they say push to clear hurdle for by-elections. So MPs propose law changes to allow electoral team conduct mini polls, which have been pending for over a year. The top scroll, 2 highlights. Mission to Haiti in limbo after Prime Minister Ariel Henry quits. And back to Kenya, agony for governors as cash cut to 390 billion Kenyan shillings. Matters devolution right there. That is the front page of People Daily for you.
All right, on the front page of the Star, Haiti PM resigns, funding violence-threatened mission, matters to do with the deployment of police to Haiti. And they ask what next for Haiti as Prime Minister steps down. And they've actually chronicled all the events and activities leading up to yesterday when he resigned. And the question is, will Kenya still proceed to deploy police to Haiti? Officers for the mission have been placed on standby. Other highlights on the front page of the Star, wife pleads with Nigeria to release kidnapped husband. And my paper has disappeared. Detained husband, rather. Elsewhere, cover all kidney transplant costs, patients tell Ministry of Health. And one more highlight on the top strip of the Star, how President Ruto and Raila election audit team will work. And that's the Star this morning. We'll probably wrap up with the Business Daily now.
Oh, yes. On the Business Daily matters the shilling. They say shilling rallies to 8-month high and cuts debt by 800 billion Kenyan shillings. The shilling rebounds past 140 mark against the US dollar. And the Nairobi Securities Exchange now best bounce in Africa on dollar inflows. So context on that is the Kenyan shilling has responded to an 8-month high, extending gains that began mid last month in a trend that lifted the NSE to the best bounce in Africa on dollar inflows. On the bottom scroll, second Treasury official exits as state pushes for reforms. And on the ticker, matters economy, US sanctions bus firm, 15 others over 14 billion Kenyan shillings Shabab funding. Matters economy still, Stanchot's 11 billion dividend sparks NSC share gain. And finally matters companies, Airbnb bans cameras in short stay rentals. An interesting one, though. Banning cameras. Well, what do you think? I mean, if
it's an invasion of privacy. Imagine having CCTVs inside.
All the CCTVs themselves makes sense. I thought for a moment it was you having your own personal camera in there.
I think it has a lot to do with protecting people's privacy.
Oh yes, and finally on the Insert Life Pull-Out magazine, something that on Friday says, "How hot is your coffee?" Mm-hmm. We'll talk about boutique cafes thrive on coffee drinking culture. Oh yes.
All right.
That is the Business Daily for you. Tuingie kwenye caricature sasa.
Yes, let's take a look at the cartoons on page 12 of the Standard. Yes, that one you mentioned earlier, Stan. Egg on the face of Kenya on this plan to deploy police to Haiti. And they have the breaking news there. Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry resigned following weeks of mounting pressure and increasing violence in the impoverished country. And he had just signed an agreement with Kenya, and now Kenya has been left with egg on the face. On page 17 of the Daily Nation, matters health and the priorities, with the doctor strike looming, and the CS for Health, Susan Nahumicha, seemingly not responding to the demands by doctors on employing intern teachers. We have Treasury there feeding other priorities and not really attending to the doctors. That's a cartoon on the Daily Nation today.
On People Daily. Now, we remember on Monday, Stanu had this policeman throwing a bucket, holding a bucket of water and, trying to quell the fire that was there. And the commentator was saying, no, you actually go in there. Now today, Stanu says, now this policeman says, bring it on, I'm ready, flexing his guns there. And this huge crocodile is the Haiti gangs, the barbecue and his like. And
barbecue.
Yes, whatever is happening in Haiti. That is Stanu's take on the cartoons this morning.
All right. We'll be discussing these and a lot more with panelists later on State of the Nation. Do stand by for that. Today we'll be having Alex Mwathi, political commentator, and Meshak Odede, political analyst. Those are the two gentlemen who will be in studio. Do stand by for that conversation. And later on, today is one of those days that we tell you how your relationship should be looking like. And this morning we discuss matters resolving conflicts when it comes to a relationship, either dating or marriage. How do you resolve those minor and very subtle conflicts that you have? Oh, huyu kufunga fridge, oh, huyu alifanya nini? Alifanya toothpaste kuanzia upande hapa katikati.
Or actually now those major kind of conflicts that are in a relationship. How do we resolve those kind of conflicts? Later on, we cook rice and liver. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it's going to be sizzling and everything. Nakubakishia plate. I promise.
Last week you didn't leave me anything, but then again, it's a new week, it's a new day. Let's hope for better days today.
Oh yes, that is what is coming up all the way until 10 a.m. So stick around for that. You can always be part of this show at 22047 is our SMS number. 0795-045-864 is the number to call in live at TV47KE on Facebook, at TV47 News on X, yangu ni Nyerungita _
at Fred Indimuli on X.
We take a short break. When we come back, telling you what is happening on the news stories. Welcome back. This is Morning Cafe. Now, the United States government has sanctioned Crown Bus, a Kenyan bus transport company, and 15 other entities and people for allegedly facilitating terror group Al-Shabaab's annual income flows. Among the sanctioned companies is Halil Commodities Limited, based in Dubai, with subsidiaries in Kenya, Uganda, Somalia, and Cyprus. And as Paul Kirobi reports, the designated suspects include Mohamud Jumale Ali Awale and Faisal Yusuf Dini, both based in Kenya.
Crown Bus Services, a company with an extensive network connecting Mombasa, Nairobi, Western Kenya, and destinations in Uganda, has been brought to light as one of the facilitators of logistics operations for the terror group Al-Shabaab. The U.S. Department of the Treasury's Office of Foreign Assets Control recently imposed sanctions on 16 entities and people involved in an expansive business network spanning the Horn of Africa, the United Arab Emirates UAE, and Cyprus. This network is alleged to raise and launder funds for Al-Shabaab, a terrorist group with alleged ties to Al-Qaeda. According to the U.S. Department's report, Dubai-based Halil Commodities, also known as Halil Group, is identified as a key financial facilitator for Al-Shabaab. Halil Commodities Limited operates in Kenya and Uganda, known as Halil Commodities Limited in Uganda and as Halil Electronics in Somalia. Faisal Yusuf Dini, a Kenyan-based citizen, is highlighted as an Al-Shabaab financial facilitator who uses Halil Group and some of its leadership to transfer funds on behalf of the group. Mohammed Jumale Ali Awale is alleged to have been involved in planning investment projects and money laundering activities, including through Kenyan-based Crown Bus Services. Fahan Hussein Haidar manages Halil Group's branches in Kenya, Uganda, and Cyprus, and the UAE, supporting Al-Shabaab by generating funds for the group through these businesses. A notable part of this network operates in Uganda, with Abdul Kadir Omar Abdullahi associated with the Halil Group's Uganda branch as its director, along with Omar Sheikh Ali Hiloli and Haidar. The suspects and entities are subject to sanctions by OFAC due to their alleged involvement with Al-Shabaab. Paul Kirobi, TV47, Nairobi.
Meanwhile, the Controller of Budget, Dr. Margaret Nyakango, has flagged suspicious spending in government ministries where billions of taxpayers' cash have been reallocated to various state departments, ostensibly to pay pending bills. Now, the spot is the 9.8 billion cash shillings relocated to President William Ruto's flagship project, the Affordable Housing Project, from the National Housing Corporation to clear questionable pending bills. Now, this also flagged was 75 million shillings meant to fight locust invasion, despite no documented cases of locust invasion for the last 6 months. Apollo Kumau tells us more.
To Parliament.
The Control of Budget 2023-2024 Budget Implementation Report exposes government ministries over questionable spending for the last 6 months, starting July to December 2023. Dr. Margaret Nyakango, who appeared before the National Assembly's Finance and Planning Committee, flagged 9.8 billion shillings pre-allocated from the National Housing Corporation to the Affordable Housing Project to clear questionable pending bills. The Affordable Housing Project is yet to be legalized by Parliament.
I confirm here and now that I wrote not once but twice to the State Department of Housing asking why they were reallocating the 9.8 billion. This money was supposed to go to National Housing Corporation, and instead it was taken to this affordable housing. I asked for the details, and I was not provided with these details. I was told it was to settle pending bills.
Also on the spot is the reallocation to fight locust invasion for 75 million shillings under the State Department for Crop Development, despite lack of a notable locust invasion in the last 6 months.
Say you are fighting locusts, so you still must travel, you still must buy fuel, you still must sleep somewhere, and you are fighting locusts. So under the locust program, the whole program, these costs are budgeted under the development.
The State Department for Correctional Services is also on the spot for reallocating 217 million shillings to clear pending bills. According to the Control of Budget, the reallocations were done to skip restrictions on expenditure from the initial budgetary allocations.
The fact that we don't seem to handle this grave matter of privilege of public funds could be because the people never change. And every regime after the other, the people that change is the PS and the CS, and everyone else remains.
And you see, when you look at this proposal she gave us, it's like the money was being removed from where it is very hard to spend to where it is easy to spend.
It looks like there are some things which are being done by National Treasury, and they are hiding under the cover. They only disclose what suits you, but the main details are hiding from you.
The Control of Budget now wants Parliament to amend the Control of Budget Act to give her legal powers to oversee funds outside the Consolidated Fund, like the Petroleum Levy and the Railway Development Levy, which she said are prone to misuse. Apul Kamau, TV47.
And in an effort to combat illegal alcohol, a multi-agency team Tuesday seized and confiscated illicit brew in Muthurwa and Roysambu areas in Nairobi County. In Roysambu area, the multi-agency team shut down several liquor shops and apprehended traders operating without valid licenses in the area. According to Central OCPD Doris Kemei, the operation was successful, resulting in the arrest of a few people who were selling illicit alcohol. Nelson Mureza with more.
In a recent crackdown on illegal alcohol operations, more than 20 people suspected to be the key players in the illicit alcohol business were apprehended in Muthurwa area. Simultaneously, numerous clubs were shut down in Roysambu as a part of a joint operation conducted by a multi-agency team. Starehe Deputy County John Kisang says the operation, which commenced in the morning, was successful. Police managed to seize and destroy 200 liters of busa, 8 crates of illegal alcohol, and 60 kilograms of cannabis seeds.
So in total, we have we bought 2,400 liters of meat in the dawa, 200 liters of busa. We confiscated about 8 cartons of second generation and also 8 crates of second generation alcohol and 60 kilos of cannabis sativa seeds, commonly known as bank.
Kisang highlighted the harmful effect of illegal alcohol trade, noting that it has led to addiction among many residents, particularly youth and women in the area.
There are people who are dependent now on this because it has taken toll of their lives and their energy. So we have a lot of people suffering, especially the youth, and you can see some few women and men who now they cannot do anything, they cannot fend for themselves because they are dependent on the drugs.
Meanwhile, Central OCPD Doris Kemei has issued a stern warning to illicit sellers, saying that they will face the full force of the law. She has urged police officers to remain vigilant in the efforts to crack down illegal alcohol operations.
And I want to send a very stern warning to everyone within Simbindi. We don't have any place for this kind of a business. Anything illegal, illicit brew, second generation alcohol, we have no space whatsoever for such kind of a business. And this must go as a warning.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, on his part, reiterated the government commitment to eradicate illegal liquor sales nationwide, saying that the operation will persist across the country.
So I thought we should just agree. If you want to waste time with court, it's fine. There's no problem. But this one, we will not back off. If we back off, we don't have Kenya for tomorrow. And it will be very irresponsible.
Nelson Mwareza, TV47.
From Nairobi, let me take you to the Caribbean area, where Haiti's Prime Minister Ariel Henry has resigned amidst escalating chaos in the capital city, where armed gangs have been attacking government facilities. His resignation was announced late Monday, following weeks of mounting turmoil. Reports indicate that gangs launched attacks on various government premises, further deteriorating the situation in Haiti. Ariel Henry's decision to step down comes after his recent visit to the country, where he held meetings with President William Ruto. During this discussion, plans were made for Kenya to deploy 1,000 special elite police officers to support a UN-backed security mission aimed at combating Haiti's armed gangs. Mwige William with more.
Former Haitian Prime Minister Ariel Henry announced his resignation late Monday, bringing an end to his disorderly 3-year rule in the Caribbean country, which has been rocked by chaos since the assassination of Haiti's former president Jovenel Moise in 2021. Ariel Henry took over leadership following Moise's assassination, but his tenure was marked by increasing challenges. Before his resignation, Henry toured Kenya to sign an agreement to send 1,000 Kenya police officers to help restore security, which his government had struggled to maintain.
And I want to say, from Kenya, we are ready for this deployment.
We did this appeal, and you step up, and you said, we want to help Haiti. We want to exercise a solidarity with you.
Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki disclosed on Monday that the Kenya-led mission to Haiti, now in limbo due to Henry's resignation, was in the pre-deployment stage. Kindiki also revealed that the standard operation procedures guiding the multinational security mission had been finalized.
Kenyan police officers will be just part of the multinational security mission in Haiti. Kenya is the lead nation, but there are so many other countries that have pledged to contribute troops.
In his address, Kindiki further revealed that all the other programs related to the deployment of 1,000 elite Kenya police units to the gang-hit Caribbean nation are in place, including the status of forces agreement and law regarding detention, arrest, and other enforcement measures.
The resignation of the Prime Minister, Henry Ariel, has no legal implication whatsoever if you look at it from that perspective. Much as it's resigned, yes, the kind of signing that did happen between Kenya and Haiti still holds.
In the past few weeks, Haiti's capital Port-au-Prince has seen escalating attacks by heavily armed gang. Ariel Henry was unable to return to the country and announced his resignation while in Puerto Rico. Already a state of emergency has been declared in Haiti.
Kenya, in this particular situation, being nudged on the shoulders by the big brother, the US of A, has got to be very keen to answer these questions, especially with regards to the force protection of our men that are now being optimized to go into this environment.
Reports indicate that representatives from the Haiti's government, opposition groups, the private sector, civil society and religious groups have met with development partners, including the Caribbean Community, CARICOM, to establish a consensus on restoring stability to the island. A presidential transitional council is said to be established as part of these efforts. Mwege William, TV47.
Right, back to Kenya. Let's focus on matters of health now. The management of Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital has refuted claims from videos circulating online suggesting that a woman gave birth to twins but was given only one baby after delivery. The management of the Level 4 hospital has affirmed that a scan conducted before delivery identified features of a single baby, contrary to the alleged scenario of twins. Elizabeth Atieno paints us this picture.
In this video that has been circulating on social media for 3 days, women at Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital are seen clamoring for justice, alleging that a mother had given birth to twins, but one baby was allegedly stolen at the facility. On Tuesday, the Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital Board of Management broke their silence on the matter, maintaining that only one child was delivered via cesarean section.
That video clip that is going around is misplaced, is inaccurate, is untrue. Of which we are not certain what the aim and the agenda is.
Ile video si halali na ujumbe ambao wanausema pale si kweli. Kweli ni kwamba mama alijifungua mtoto mmoja na hasa saa hizi vile tunaongea yupo wodini.
With the aid of CCTV cameras in the facility, the family of the new mother have been taken through the events that happened in the hospital during her admission. Thereafter, the father of the baby expressed his satisfaction on the findings, further confirming that they had no scans to prove that the wife was expecting twins.
Hapa katikati huwa maconfusion inakuwa ni mingi, lakini mimi mwenyewe nimesimama, nimefuatilia, nimepata ukweli ya kwamba mtoto ni wa kike na ni mmoja.
The Mama Lucy Hospital Board of Management, led by Doris Kemunto, and the gynecologist who conducted the operation, say the lady was rushed to Mama Lucy Hospital due to an emergency, and a scan was conducted before delivery that established features of a single baby.
Both mother and baby were delivered safely via cesarean section. Mother is doing well currently, baby is doing well. We have a baby who is 1.6 kilos, scored 8, 9, and 10, that is APGAR score, and is currently in NBU.
Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital has been embroiled in controversy in recent times, with speculation about cases of medical negligence, a move that prompted the Nairobi County government to institute a new board in April 2023. Just 5 months ago, a former Mama Lucy Hospital staff, was found guilty of child theft by the Milimani law courts and sentenced to 25 years in prison. The culprit, Fred Leparan, who worked at Mama Lucy Kibaki Hospital as a social worker, was also ordered to attend 10 years of supervised community service, while his co-accused Selina Awor was slapped with a 300,000 Kenya shillings fine or a 2-year jail term. Elizabeth Atieno, TV47, Nairobi.
Thank you for that, Liza Tieno. For Matters News Stories, there's more context of these happenings in the state of the nation. Across over to Fred Indimuli, having Alex Mothi, as well as Meshach Odede for more on this. Fred, over to you.
Thank you, Stanley, and a very good morning to all our viewers. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. My name is Fred Indimuli, and yes, as Stanley mentioned, I'm in studio with the political commentators Alex Mwathi and Meshach Odede. Good morning, gentlemen.
Good morning.
Good morning. Sana.
Thank you.
A quick look at the dailies, and apart from Haiti, it appears that the dailies are struggling to agree on what is the biggest news. But this whole week we've been trying to examine this hypothesis that the discussions we're having as a country appear to be changing now. We're no longer having the hard-hitting political headlines. This could be partly informed by Raila Odinga's move, gunning for the AUC chairperson's position, or probably something else is happening. And I want to present this to you to see if at all you're seeing the same thing as us. For example, yesterday the dailies were talking about border accidents and a murder that happened somewhere, a love triangle gone bad. And today we're talking about Haiti, yes, and something that happened in Parliament. But could it be true that the discussions we're having, Bwana Mwathi, are slowly beginning to change, that probably we're focusing more on human interest stories and not hard-hitting politics, as we have done for the last couple of years?
I think in the course of the week, we had some meme that was circulating about Mama Ngilu, saying that she's really shocked about the handshake that has happened between William Ruto and Raila Odinga. And she was actually asking for a job by saying that, Ruto must, congratulations, Ruto. First of all, congratulate him. Remember, there has never been an admission that he's a president from that side. Congratulations to him, and then an instruction that to remember that Raila is not alone. He has others that he also needs to consider. So yes, it has nothing to do with the AU seat. It has to do with the handshake that took place. That they reach a point where something was exchanged and was satisfactory to Raila Odinga. And he stepped down from the high position of opposing anything that happens or creating issues. And so now he's free for all. So Ruto has a whole 3-4 years to rule without any opposition whatsoever. And yesterday, you mentioned in passing the parliament, what happened in Senate yesterday is a complete indication of the level of misrule that will happen in this country in the country.
And we'll come to discuss that in particular, that issue.
So basically the reason why there's nothing happening is because everybody now that was needed to eat has eaten, and they are satisfied. And they have forgotten that there were issues that were dealing with in this country that are still there.
But Odede, do you agree with that people are now satisfied? We no longer have the problems that we wanted to have on the headlines. Everyone is happy?
I don't think so. I think we're used to confrontational politics. And so the moment it is not there for a day or two, there's a feeling that there's a big gap. I do not even know where my brother Mwathi is coming from when he says everybody who is supposed to eat have eaten. I don't know how of an insider he is, but the truth is the NADCO report was in Parliament and was passed by none other than Kimani Ichung'wah and team. If at all, the majority is coming from William Ruto's side. And I'm not sure whether, in his opinion, everybody else led by Raila Odinga are supposed to be on street for 5 years for him to get satisfied and feel that everything is going on right. Because I don't know between Raila and Ruto what other thing they would have done right as leaders in this country to make things move. Because when Raila is on the street, I am sure, and I can bet $1 million shillings that Modi would be on this table talking about how things are bad, how business is not happening, how the country is at a standstill, every negative thing. Now that it looks like, okay, we have a way out, let's discuss the issues in Parliament. Then it looks for him again like everybody who is supposed to eat something have eaten something.
That's
a bit demeaning. To me, that's a bit demeaning.
Have we gotten a way out, Bonodede?
No, we haven't. The issues are still being discussed. The Parliament the other day just adopted the report, and now the issues on that report are supposed to be implemented one by one. Remember, this country don't have a ABC. This country is due for boundary delimitations, a lot of things. There is a constituency in this country which has never been represented from the elections of 2022. It is a big injustice to those people. Nobody is representing them in the National Assembly. So when these issues are in the House, and the House seems to have some unity around adopting them so that implementation of these things can happen, we have other Kenyans like my brother here who feels like he is supposed to be represented on the street, and if Raila would call us on the street, he won't go.
Yeah.
That is very funny.
Could it be just a change of approach to the issues that probably we feel are dear to us? That with Raila Odinga, as Bonodede says, it was, we were used to that confrontational kind of politics, and with him not occupying that same position, then it changes for everyone.
I never supported the fact that people are going to the streets, and I'll never support. And the point is, when you look at a debate like this, is to be pragmatic and logical in thinking. That we were confrontational because there was a housing levy that was being introduced that was against the wishes of Kenyans. We had the high cost of living. We had high cost of fuel. We had all these other issues that were coming up. And those are the ones that the opposition was considering to be the most important things for this nation. Nothing has changed. The only thing has changed is a handshake, is a movement of people away from those issues to now congratulating the system and congratulating everything the system does. That's my point. That, for me, shows a complete dishonesty on the part of the opposition, on part of the government. Because for them, they have to agree on issues that benefit them, which is selfishness. If you remember the definition of people who are selfish with the Greek is idiots. So that they're selfish as individuals, and that's why, for me, it's very simple. Everybody has eaten. They are relaxed now. So that's why when a matter goes to Senate like yesterday, a matter that was really hot in the time when people are going to the streets, 10 members of the Senate were nowhere to be seen. An entire side voted for, and the entire side voted against. Meaning that it's no longer important to be able to go and question some of these things. Let them be. Okay. And I can tell you, the government will run roughshod on everybody when they want to implement anything that they want.
Yes.
Raila and his team are satisfied. They are okay. Getting an AU seat doesn't solve the problem that he advocated for many years on the streets.
And
even when he was on the streets, I question that. Because there's a way you can question it without necessarily going to the streets. Yes.
What Bonawadi is referring to is on the front page of the Daily Nation. What happened in Parliament yesterday? It would appear that even the conduct in Parliament has changed. That even the minority side is not really interested in really holding ground. 10 members. Remember, out of 47 senators, the other side were almost full house. Yeah. Half of the opposition senators or the minority side were not even available in the House. Yeah. That says something.
Yeah, it should say something. And I will say some of us are not bothered by that. Because I don't know how we want the team we call opposition to do this, because number one, there is no opposition in the Constitution of Kenya. There is Parliament.
Yes.
a whole parliament, whether you are Mwathi's member of parliament or Meshak's member of parliament, when you step into that house, either as a senator or a member of parliament in the National Assembly, your work is the same: oversight, legislate, and represent. And there is also boiling down on how to represent and everything. There is no opposition. So I don't know why people like Mwathi sits and tells Kenyans that there are members of parliament, trying to even make amendments, for example, on the finance bill. And those amendments were thwarted by the so-called numbers.
Something happened yesterday.
The so-called numbers, yeah? We have the numbers, and the people they elected are there to say, Mr. Speaker, put the question. And we've seen many, many times everything being, then even if it was him, what else would he have done? Nothing. Wait and let everybody they elected to do what they wanted to do, and let Kenyans go for another election.
Are you saying we should sit back and watch?
Yes, we should sit back and
the minority
watch.
Side just give way to the majority side?
Yes.
They should have their say as well.
Yes, they have had their say. Who doesn't know they stood against the finance bill? Who doesn't know they have stood against the housing levy? Who doesn't know in this country? Everyone knows. But how do they get their way with minority? Nothing. So I don't know what people like Mwathi wants. There's nothing. For God's sake, this time, if you are a Kenyan and you know the Constitution allows you to do something about what is going on in the governance space, go out there and do it. Raila will not do it for anyone.
Now,
that is the truth.
My concern now is on the way forward, because fine, the AU position is still not guaranteed. You see, chairman's position is not guaranteed until the elections come next year. But as I started this conversation, is to ask, have we as a nation changed the way we approach matters? Have we changed the conversations we're having? Is that what we are seeing? And can we sustain that? Bwana Mwathi.
There are two issues. There's a conversation that we have, and there's reality of issues on the ground. And the way we handle our conversation is not, the change is not new. In 1997, we had an election that was Moi won, and we had Kibaki and Raila who saying, look, this election is stolen. Conversation happened, and within a few years, then we had a situation where the Raila's party was absorbed by KANU. Kibaki went quiet, and matters went on as usual. We come to 2002, heated election, when Moi is now exiting the stage, and the teams that he had created on 18th of March stood on one side and the other side on this side. We come 2007, people kill each other, 1,300 people are dead, almost 600,000 people are displaced around this country. And after that, the handshake happens, everything is forgotten. The things that people are fighting to kill each other for. Forget about this issue of saying who votes who doesn't vote who. That's a secondary issue. So in 2013, somehow the fight went on until 2017. 2018, a handshake happens, and everything quietens up and allows the people that were ruling to do whatever they wanted to do, because they had my brother here with me, so there's no problem. Our problem is to be able to kind of as a country focus our energy on one person to be able to lead that. That's the one that will change permanently. Because I think after this, I believe Right Honorable Raila Odinga now is old enough now, maybe he will not be in that space anymore. So that the country has to create another team of people that question the government. Because democracy is about having a government and having a people who question the government. Whether you call them minority, majority, or whether you call the government an opposition, those are semantics. It's people who really go back and say, hey, why are you doing that? Because the government has to marshal its forces around the people that support it to be able to push an agenda. The minority or opposition, whatever you want to call it, semantics again, are supposed to question. And you remember in the past, by the grace of God, we had the civil society that seems to have died a natural death in this whole shenanigans. Because if you let a person not to be questioned, human beings naturally become dictators. Because then I'm the owner of knowledge, I'm the owner of everything, and I'll move forward. So the issue here isn't is allocating maybe Raila as a person who has been a representative of that voice of reason, voice of questioning. Not necessarily all the time voice of reason, but voice that questions the rest. Because that's democracy. Majority, minority. Government, opposition, semantics.
Okay. But Odede, do you agree that probably with the exit of Raila Odinga, we've lost that voice to question whatever government does?
A lot. We have, and we will.
Yet there were other institutions that could play their role and occupy that space.
That's why we need to lose Raila Odinga so that those institutions can come out, so that Mwathi can come out and question things. We cannot have one Raila Odinga in this country who at the election, he is your devil. You don't want to face, and after election, he is your messiah. You want him to represent your voice everywhere. It's never gonna happen. I stand with that. Raila Odinga must be lost, and however, whichever way we are losing Raila Odinga, no one cares at this point in time. We want him to be out, and we want people like me and Mwathi to go out there and question government. The Constitution allows us. We have voices as Kenyans. Okay. It has given us those voices.
Time for us to take a break. When we come back, we'll continue with this same conversation and examine the kind of conversations we're having even in Parliament, especially with the NADCO report, and whether or not that is what we should be focusing on right now. You're watching Morning Cafe on TV47. Welcome back. This is the Morning Cafe on TV47. My name is Fred Ndimuli. I'm still in studio with political commentators Alex Mwathi and Mesha Kodede, who seem to disagree a lot on how this nation is going to move forward, especially in the kind of conversations we're having. And we are examining the hypothesis that with the possible exit of Raila Odinga from the political scene or as a leader of the opposition, as it were, then many of the conversations appear to be dilute. I'd want us to examine what's going on in Parliament, especially even with the NADCO report. And there seems to be a lot of agreement or convergence across the political divide in as far as support for that document is concerned. But the question is, this conversation began on a different premise altogether. It was about the cost of living. It was about issues that were affecting Kenyans. Now the things they are discussing are things that are going to be totally, probably fundamentally changing of the constitution. It might require a referendum. Whether or not we'll afford it now, is a question that no one is answering. But are we really having the correct discussion? Yes, the discussion has shifted. Are we lost in the kind of discussions we are engaging in, from the Houses of Parliament to the common mwananchi?
Now, after the 2022 election, there was a disagreement in terms of who won and who did not win. And of course, the process went through. We remember court matters and all that. And then the opposition then went to the streets on the basis of that election. Lost traction in terms of that and came back around May last year, if you remember. And now the clarion call was about cost of living. And after a couple of months of back and forth, we all remember what happened. Then the debate came to an agreement that people sit together and agree issues affect this country, which was a fantastic thing, because people are agreeing that, yes, we are Kenyans and we have issues, let's agree. And the issues that were to be discussed for NADCO report did not include cost of living. So that was put on the side, and whatever was put in the front was political settlement. And that political settlement was what was discussed over a period of time, and NADCO report came. If you remember, when NADCO report came out, there are people, I think the only one that comes to mind on top of my head is Martha Karua was against that report. Mm-hmm. Yet the report was done by her representative. As a running mate for Raila Odinga, obviously she was at the highest echelon of that Azimio group. So the people that were there was Kalonzo Musyoka, another very powerful person that sat down and agreed on the issues. So remember, we were questioning, how do you come back and say you didn't discuss this, while she had an opportunity all the time that matter was being discussed to come in and discuss. So the issues that were really agreed on by the two sides in that meeting were more of a political settlement for the two teams. Now, when the report comes to Parliament, of course you don't expect anything that was not discussed in that report to come in. And number two, because this was an agreement between the two sides, after discussion for almost three months, I'm not surprised that when it goes to Parliament, everybody agrees with it. Because really, this is what our representative gave on the table from both minority and the majority side, and this is a report. So can we do it? Obviously, to be passed without any alternation.
Because my question is now, is it politics just for the sake of politics? Discussions around even extending the term of senators from 5 to 7 years. The things we should be looking at now, you mentioned earlier, the deadline for delimitation and review of boundaries has lapsed. No one is talking about it. That is not even a conversation we are having. Yet we've actually defied the Constitution. This is a matter of representation, the division of resources at the constituency level. That should be key to the electorate. But the politicians have managed to sidestep it, or are hoping to sidestep it, through changing an act of parliament. This is not the conversation that is being given prominence in parliament.
Fred, there's something I don't want Kenyans to miss. As we speak, there is a government in place, and on their shoulder is the responsibility to make Kenya better, or take Kenya to the place where they promised Kenyans during elections. It is different from whether some of us are questioning how they got into power and all that. The fact is, the entire world knows Kenya has a government right now, and that government has an agenda for Kenyans. So let's not do the sideshows of Raila Odinga should question this, should question that. That is not, Ruto was not elected so that Raila Odinga should question him. He was elected because he promised Kenyans 1, 2, 3, 4, and Kenyans wanted that, or wants to see that happening. So whether there is today no single member of parliament who is elected in Azimio, will Kenya stop, will Ruto stop being president? No. He has not stopped being president even when Raila Odinga was on the street. All they have reminded Kenyans is they are in power and no going back. So that is why, for me, it is wrong to direct the question to Raila Odinga. When you have a president, you should direct the question to Raila Odinga.
I'm asking the conversations we're having right now, and I'm questioning the role of Parliament and the conversations happening at parliamentary level. I've not even mentioned
when we are questioning the role of Parliament, why are we so much looking into or looking disappointed about the opposition not standing?
I think you did not get my question right.
When majority is actually the majority leader. Right. For example, when Modi is telling you about the NADCO, he is deliberately not mentioning Kimani Ichung'wah, who is the majority leader in Parliament, leading that conversation.
Allow me to repeat my question, because I'm asking, are we having the right conversations as Kenyans from parliamentary level to the Mwananchi's level? The issues, and I pointed out as an example, the issue of delimitation of boundaries being a very key conversation that we should be having as a country, but we are not having it. That has not even been challenged in court, probably to seek an advisory on the way forward. This is the kind of conversation we should be having. How come we're focusing more on a report which is politics for the sake of politics, including extending the term of governors? And I'm mentioning that simply as an example. Should that be a priority? Because it's being discussed.
It should be a priority, and yes, we're not having the right conversation. The right conversation has been put aside. But like I said, if the right conversation has been put aside, does it mean the president is asleep? Does it mean the whole government is asleep? Who knows that the right conversation for this country now is this, and we are the men and women in power? I think that is where everything stops. That is where everything falls. And because with the majority, the danger of having a government constituted like the one we have, where you have the ruling party or the ruling coalition having the majority in Parliament and Senate and everywhere else, is what Kenyans are now having. So if today the way Kenyans voted happened, because we both know somehow the parties who went to election under Azimio had majority. But as we speak, most of them are on the other side supporting the other side. So that is where things go wrong on Kenyans, because if they were having their voice or their way, right now they would have done the right thing already.
Yet having a majority is not a new phenomenon. Jubilee administration had a majority for the better part of its time in power.
Yes.
And but the kind of conversations we were having at least had some sort of balance. Right now we appear to have diluted the level of conversation we're having across the board completely. And that is the concern I'm raising on this table. It is not just us versus them. It is the level of conversations that we're having. And are we having the right conversation going forward? Or has the political field been pacified to an extent that we have lost direction in as far as what we should be discussing?
Yeah, I think the question is not us against them or them against us, or the question is as a nation. Yes, and the question is, when Parliament discusses NADCO without considering the key issues that the common Mwananchi is crying from, whether you're from Mount Kenya, whether you're from Nyanza, wherever, the issues that you're crying about. We saw passing on of the housing levy, which forces every Kenyan who is employed to pay 1.5% of his gross pay, meaning a 58-year-old man will be charged 1.5% of his salary for the next 2 years to build houses. I don't know for who. That is lost now completely, because like I said earlier, people have been pacified because people have been gotten what they wanted, and people have stepped back. The whole issue of a choice of whether you want to be part of the people that question the government and the policies, go to Parliament and have your way, because that's democracy. In fact, I keep saying that this thing, animal, we were given by the Greeks, and Aristotle one day mentioning about it said, democracy is the worst sort of government, the worst kind of government. Because in democracy, the leaders are elected by the masses, so that a professor in the University of Economics has the same one vote that a peasant farmer in Kiambu or in Murang'a or in Nyeri, wherever it is, has. And that vote counts as much as this one. Yet the professor can understand from the presentation of the guy who is standing whether he can actually fulfill, yet the peasant may not be able to do that. But Aristotle also said, it's the only form of government that is sensible, because the rest are dictatorship. So hence he said that the best thing is to work around it so that to make it more sensible. Mm-hmm. What has happened now is that the majority and the minority now have almost merged, or the minority have just stepped back. Mm-hmm. Because democracy is about the majority having their way, but the minority having their say. If you remember in the last government, there were many things to be questioned, and fortunately or unfortunately, the opposition was within the government. Mm-hmm. So that within the government, we had people like Kangata now writing, as being a member of Jubilee and a majority whip, writing to the president and telling him that, look, the way things are going is not right. Mm-hmm. Of course, he was kicked out. So, and you had a government opposing itself, and that's why you're talking about there having been a conversation, because anything that was brought forth, they opposed it. But it wasn't on in principle. It was only for the sake of opposing. Mm-hmm. Because you remember when the 1.5% housing levy was introduced by Jubilee government in parliament, it's them within Jubilee who opposed it.
The Tanga team.
The Tanga team. They opposed it and killed it. When they came to power, they went back to the drawers and pulled out the same bill and put on the table. Now at 3%. And they were very smart, because when I tell you 3%, I negotiate with you 1.5%, you say, oh, you have won. But you still lost at the end of the day. So currently what we are having is a situation where, which is not a very good thing for the country, where the minority are not taking their position to have their say in matters that are being discussed.
Okay.
But Fred, is it really factual to say the minority are not having their say? Who has not seen Sifuna in the Senate, and we can count many of the senators on the side of Azimio opposing these things on the floor and doing everything they can do to get their say out there? Mwathi, are you in this country? Have you not seen the likes of Sifuna opposing these things in the House, in the Senate? Have you seen the likes of Mbadi opposing these things in the National Assembly and even giving the alternative amendments that are supposed to happen? Why do you generalize and start coming here to tell us the minority? What do you want them to do? To die for you in Mount Kenya after you are members of parliament from the region are told by the deputy president, none other than the deputy president, that whatever you see Raila Odinga oppose, that is good for us in Mount Kenya. Mm-hmm. What the hell do you people want other people to do?
10 senators were not there.
It is not going to happen again. Fred. Let everybody go and ask their own member of parliament. If my member of parliament is Tom Kajuang in Ruaraka, it is him I should look in the eye and say, I did not ask you to go and vote that bill. Mm-hmm. Why did you vote that bill? But Mwathi should not come here. I don't know who your member of parliament is, but go and ask him. It is not Raila Odinga's job to come and protect you and tell us, oh, opposition has done this. No. And go and ask your senator. And Fred, Sifuna told us this, and it is in the clips of the media. He told Waiguru, don't come to us in the Senate asking us to go and battle for you, while your own senator in the House, I am voting that you should get more money, and your own senator from Kirinyaga is voting that you should not get money. Then you are coming here to tell us how opposition have abandoned their... No, it is not going.
Are you saying we should not question Parliament as a collective nation?
No, not collective.
It should be individual.
Individual.
Members.
Yes, go and ask your member of
Parliament. Should the conversation be like that? That we question individual members and not Parliament? It is our Parliament.
Not on this.
Why are we running away from the responsibility?
Not on this earth. Not on this earth. It can happen.
It can.
We have to question them as a house. Mm-hmm. Bwana Odede, unfortunately, he's personalizing the discussion. He's bringing in Raila Odinga at every stage. Mm-hmm. Even when he's not mentioned.
Because the conversation, that is where you started, and I'm putting you right where you started.
I'm speaking on the conversation.
I am putting you right where you started.
Bwana Odede, I'm speaking now, please.
Yes.
I give you a chance to speak. When you talk about Parliament, I have no idea how Raila Odinga comes in. Because Raila Odinga is not part of that conversation. Mm-hmm. Because Raila is not a member of Parliament, he's not a member of Senate. Initially, we were talking about the general political situation in the country. There he comes in because he's a very critical person. He's been called enigma, and he's a fact. He's an enigma. He's been in these things since 1980, in the 80s. So you're talking about 40 years of being in the truncheons to be able to fight for the lives of the people. So you can't ignore him when you're talking about the general conversation of politics in this country. If you do that, you're being foolish. But when you're talking about Parliament and its conversation and what they're taking as their main agenda, you can't bring him in. He's not a member there whatsoever. And the fact that one person comes in and shouts about something or questions something, in this matter, of course, I think it was one of the members, senators, who came up with the amendments that were, of course, thrown out. Fantastic amendments, things like anybody above 55 should not be taxed, which made a lot of sense. For me, I would have said, maybe fake it 50. People, you cap it at 2,500. You know, the initial one had capped at, I think, 5,000 shillings, so that you don't, if somebody is earning $1 million shillings, you don't tax him so much money, you spend it. Very good. But the point is, in the Senate, 10 members did not vote on a matter of national interest. That's what we should be talking about. And let's not personalize issues. Odede to start saying that you people and where you come from. He doesn't even know where I come from whatsoever. You don't know at all.
It doesn't.
At all. It matters. Because you don't tell the nation that where you Mwathi comes from, you do like this.
No.
You must know where I come from first.
No, Mwathi. If it speaks like a duck and walks like a duck, it is a duck. Thank you.
My question to you, Bwana Odede, is on the 10 members who failed to vote for this.
Yes.
You're saying we cannot question them as a country.
Yes.
It's their individual constituents who should.
Exactly.
This is an arm of government.
Yeah.
We cannot split it into 349 members to start questioning each member. It is a collective decision. When they recuse themselves and fail to take part in that, because we're talking about the kind of conversations we're having.
Yeah.
If they refuse to be part of that conversation, you say we shouldn't question that?
Fred, what I'm saying is simple. If we are trying to question that in general, then we will get general answers. But it is time every member of parliament gets to know that I was voted individually to go and represent these people. And so those people are supposed to come out and question their members of parliament. There was a big debate, and it was important to us as the people of Nairobi. Was my senator present in that debate? What was his thoughts about that debate? But if we start doing it general, we are going to end up with general answers.
Okay. Allow us to move from that conversation and now go and talk about what happens with Haiti. Because at least that is one conversation that cuts across most of the dailies. Ruto walking a tightrope on the Haiti mission, that's the front page of the Standard. It is also on the front page of the Star. Haiti, Prime Minister resigns, funding violence threatened mission. Now, the issue of the amount of money to be gotten from this has been quoted there on the front page of the Standard. The US has pledged more than 41 billion shillings for Kenya to deploy officers to the war-torn country. And probably the question is, are we all about the money? I will tie that to the other conversations that we are having locally. And if you look at the cartoons today, on both the Standard and the Daily Nation, on the Standard, it's egg on face with regard to what's happening in Haiti and the resignation of the Prime Minister. On the Daily Nation, page 17, is about health issues here in Kenya. There's a looming doctor strike. Doctors are complaining about the lack of employment for 4,000 interns. Yet Treasury is attending to other priorities, issues of money. The same Ministry of Health is pushing for the rollout of the SHIF, which will happen, and they've said, in the new financial year beginning July. But the CS has already told us that the deductions will start this month. All about the money. So on one hand, they're not able to attend to pressing matters. Right now, as I speak, 400 private hospitals have refused to use the NHIF card, this NHIF that is being transitioned to SHIF, meaning patients at the moment are not able to access that service. The question you're asking, is it all about the money for this government? That the focus is always first the money, that everything else comes after.
When you look at even the conversation of baptizing Ruto Zakayo, it didn't just happen. It's a really heavy push to have taxes collected And for those of us who are in business, we know that the KRA are really overdoing themselves in terms of pushing taxes. For the first time, I've seen officers come in to count the stock in the factory. You told us at the close of the year you had so much of this, so much of that. You sent 2 officers to come and count. And I'm asking them, how would you date my stocks today with the stocks that I closed with? Say, no, we look at your purchase books, which I found very interesting because, you know, the tax system allows for external auditors to come and audit and all that. So when you see some of these issues about collecting money all over, yes, it's about money, it's about to finance the whatever. Of course, the initial explanation was because of the high level of debt that they inherited from the previous government, which they were part of anyway. Let's not cheat ourselves that we have a new government. It's exactly the same government with a few people here and there. And it's a sad situation because then what happens is that it reminds you of the Windows tax of UK in 1696. King William III felt that they were constrained in terms of having funds, and his advisors looked around and wondered, what else can we tax? And they said, we'll tax the windows. So any house that had more than 10 windows were taxed a certain amount, and anybody with 10 windows and below, there was a blanket 2 shillings at that time tax. And but higher than 10, then you're taxed depending on the number of windows. But what happens is that the British were smart and they started reducing the sizes of windows. That's why by the time they colonized us, their houses, if you remember, have small windows. It's because of that. Because it started in 1696 and came up to 1851. So that this government seems also to be looking for areas that can be taxed, and they are moving ahead and doing that. The housing levy, the 2.75% for the universal health services. And if you are earning 800,000 shillings in Kenya today, once this takes place, you'll pay 35% income tax. You'll pay 6% NSSF. You'll pay 1.5% to housing levy. You'll pay 2.75% to this,
even before the rollout.
Before the rollout, meaning that at source, you pay a tax of 45%. Meaning if you're earning 800,000 shillings, 300,000 shillings will go to the government at source.
Okay.
Then when you add up your VAT on everything that you buy, the extra duty and all that, that adds up to another 10-15%. So 60% of your salary really goes to the government ex-tax. This is a good thing. Government has to run. Government has to, but the government needs to rethink his desire and hunger for money and walk around like he says. I hope he has proof that someone is walking around with 40 million shillings, because that money must come from the taxpayers. It can't be from anywhere else.
But shouldn't therefore the demand by the citizenry be that as long as you're taxing me, I'm getting this service now? What is the justification of taxing for a social health insurance fund months before even registration or its rollout? Meanwhile, the old NHIF is being phased out, and so people are not receiving the services. It is the same conversation, or rather the same issue we're talking about, the conversations we are having. Kenyans are still not raising their voices when it comes to these issues.
Yes. I think it is high time Kenyans get to know that they have a space in this constitution to come out and voice their concerns. There are many other ways to do it. Unfortunately, like we have said before, we now have a parliament who, one side which is majority, are meant to represent the executive, and one side who are minority are giving up because all their effort seems to be fruitless or going nowhere. So in short, we're simply not having a parliament. So it is upon the people to see what other alternatives that does the Constitution give us to voice our concerns, if not through the representatives we elected. That is one. The space for civil society, if it is shrinking, should it concern some of us? Yes, it should. Unfortunately, people like the church falls in the civil society category, faith-based and all that. Do we have them? it is very unfortunate. They played a bigger role in placing this government in power. And for the first time, the church told us during elections that it is for the first time since our independence that the church has a candidate. So the church can never be in the street or anywhere to question. So right now I see some of them trying to paint their face to be white, but they are as dark as we saw them. So Kenyans need to now know the only option remaining is for them to stand out and speak. Looking at the so-called taxes here and there, we saw the finance bill, Fred, and we saw all Kenyans coming out before the public participation, and collectively more than 70% of people who made their presentation to the committee were opposed to these things, including professionals, including businessmen, corporates, everybody. But nothing changed after that. And here we are. Now we are having, and it opened ways, because once, you see, every government have got a way of testing. The moment they did the first and it went through, no matter how much Kenyans opposed it, then they know they can now get away with anything. If that was not to be supported completely and Kenyans were to find a way of stopping it completely, then we would have known, the government would have known, sometimes if I go the wrong route, I will not have my way out. But it went through, and we had a Chief Justice who went to negotiate. And when the negotiations were over, what we had was what the judiciary was going to get.
Are you saying
hiring more judges? Yeah?
Are you saying we've exhausted all our options for pushback?
The only option is Kenyans coming out to voice their concern in their own way now.
You see now,
that's the only way.
Their own way.
Because we had a judiciary who went to discuss with the president, and the only reason we were given, the only result we were given out of that negotiation was what judiciary was going to get. And what the government, led by the executive, was going to get was not given to us. Okay. So we don't know.
But we've seen over decades, I'm not very old, but at least I've seen a few decades, and you've seen the kind of pushback that the successive governments have received from the civil society, from the churches, from the citizenry themselves, on issues like multi-party democracy, introduction of multi-party democracy, on issues like constitutional review, on the issues, so many different things. Right now we appear, decades later, when we should have really progressed in the way we handle our affairs, we appear to have retrogressed. Yeah. To a huge extent, and there's no option for pushback. Do you get the same feeling?
100%. I keep repeating this, that on 18th of March 2002, we were bequeathed with our leadership because masses have to be guided and led. So we are bequeathed with people that will rule us over a period of time. And people who remember the Kasarani meeting, where Moi appointed Raila Odinga as Secretary General of KANU, Uhuru Kenyatta as one of the deputy vice presidents, Musalia Mudavadi vice president. He appointed Kalonzo Musyoka as, I think he was the organizing secretary. He appointed Ruto as the director of elections, meaning in front are the people that are going to rule over several years. And we have seen them do it so well. Because 2002, we had Uhuru and Ruto. We had Raila and the rest. In 2007, the ball changed. We had Uhuru going back to Kibaki's camp and Ruto going to Uhuru's side. Raila's side. Then 2012, we had a shift again, where Ruto now went to Uhuru's side, and Musalia Mudavadi went to Raila's side. In 2007, the same thing was repeated. And look at 2022. The unimaginable happened again. Is a cartel. And they have ensured that as long as they can convince the masses, because the game of politics, as they play it, is very simple. Create personality, create propaganda, and seduce the masses on that en masse. And that is what has happened.
So how did we lose this power? Because even
so now where we lost the power, because in the process of establishing these, there was a concerted effort that was supported by one side or the other side at different times to actually water down the civil society. So that as kina Willy Mutunga, kina this former governor, Kivuda Kibwana, exited that space of leading civil society, they were not able to create successors. They were sucked into politics. And in the process, they were not able to create what you call successors in that route of civil society. Okay. So the civil society now is almost dead.
And I think you remember the civil society.
Personally, I think we just have a new breed of selfish Kenyans who think some people are meant to take everything for them and they get the benefit. That's the difference for me, because the things you are talking about came with some sacrifices for individuals in this country. There are people who, in the earliest days before, there are people who had to stop their learning in the higher learning institutions and go for to complete those learnings in other countries. There are people who stayed in detention and never minded because they wanted to save a country. There are people who completely their lives changed. The Matibas died out of the illness or whatever they got out of those struggles, and many other Kenyans. But today, which one wants to sacrifice anything? All of us want to sit here and just discuss it, and that is all. So that is why we are still stuck. We want those people to come and save us. And it is not their time to save the country. It is our time to save the country.
The masses need some form of leadership, and the question probably should be, where is this leadership going to come from? Probably not from political leadership.
You see, the people we are talking about who led this campaign, they were not elected by anybody to go and lead those campaigns. They felt like sometime it is upon me as an individual to make a decision to save my country, depending on how much I love it. I love that country. And the urge I feel from, because these are sacrifices, so nobody can put you in front except what is in you that is pushing you. Mm-hmm. So the Kivuthas and the Mutungas and everybody like that were not pushed by anybody to lead this kind of campaigns. The Wangaris were not pushed by anyone. But now we have Kenyans who really can only see and tell this is wrong, but they can't do anything else. Mm-hmm. We are waiting for other saviors.
And now what is the result? What is the consequence of this situation we find ourselves in? With no possible pushback to government, the government will be allowed to do anything they want, and you mentioned it, whatever they decide to do, they'll push through with it with no proper pushback from any quarters. What is the consequence?
Human beings, nature abhors a vacuum. And I'm looking forward to a situation where another set of Kenyans will rise to be able to do that. It will be painful for a short term, but there will be people who will come out and be able to stand against the machinization that is there. Think about for a moment, if today the political class have made it so expensive to actually vie. So if you are an ordinary person who really wants to help Kenyans, you can't vie to be a member of parliament. Mm-hmm. Because with you here, when a member of parliament was telling you that even in the rural areas, they were spending 40, 50 million shillings, meaning that you spend all the money that you'll earn in 5 years in a campaign. Meaning that unless you're stupid, and these are good businessmen, astute businessmen, so they're looking for opportunity to be able to recover that and more. And basically that means that there has to come a class of Kenyans, with a bit of struggle, who will be able to come out and be able to stand up, like the Ngugi wa Thiong'os did in the past, against leadership that was wrong.
There was because some of this resistance and pushback historically has come from classes like workers. Yeah. Workers' unions, especially, then later civil society, and maybe the church to some extent. Yeah. How come we've lost all this? That even workers now are reluctant. It's taxation after taxation without any pushback.
Yeah, you see, Fred, when the struggles happened, and we got to a point where Kenyans got a new constitution in 2010, there was a feeling in that moment like we are now there, like this is it. because the first struggle was multi-party democracy, and finally in 1992 when Moi decided enough of this heat, let us repeal this section and have the multi-party. The multi-party democracy team who were struggling did not stop because they knew without the change in the law, we are still having a long journey because all the powers are still around the seat of president, and we need to devolve that power. Now that we have been given the first, in the first half we have won, and we are now having authority to have our own parties. Let's have our own parties struggling to capture power so that we can use the power to devolve and come up with a new constitution and devolve more powers to the people. And whether they got power or not, they were still struggling because they knew there is that bit that is remaining. But finally, when we got the constitution in 2010, I think Kenyans now went to sleep because that is where now the civil society feels like it is rip, 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 hooray, because we found the multi-party is still there. We have now found the new constitution, which is giving, devolving power to the people and all that. We are now having devolution, governments closer to the people. It was like we are now there. And I think that is where the slumber began.
Okay.
Because there was no much big issue we are looking forward to, except now the political class planning themselves to capture power. Okay. Everything now looked, everything.
And when I'm with you, you're a student of politics, so when it comes to these issues that you're talking about, they say they happen in cycles of 30 years. That the first 30 years gave rise, initially, the fight for freedom, independence. Then after 30 years, multi-party democracy. 30 years later, we're talking about something else. Are we saying that right now we're still not ripe for us to move to the next kind of discussion?
Yeah, nature sometimes have those cycles, and you can't argue about that. And yes, we must reach a point where majority of us will start thinking, wow, we need to do something about it, either in conversations and then change things. Remember, with the Constitution of 2010, and I'm one of the people who came very strongly that what we needed wasn't a change of constitution. Mm-hmm. Even at that point, we didn't need a change of constitution. We needed to change our ways so that we stop thinking the way we do, because somehow we are very selfish. And when we become leaders, I think we become even more selfish. I don't know whether you know that a lot of people, when they get elected, even they drop their friends. Mm-hmm. They now create friends that they think they are at par. And after some time, when they are elected, voted out, I'm sure that he's shaking his head, so he's agreeing with me. When they are voted out, they now start looking for you. Mm-hmm. They start calling you now. Hi, how are you? I just called to say hello. Before that, they didn't have time for you whatsoever. That's our problem. But I believe that there's always a moment of change. And a moment is going to come soon.
We are not ripe for that change.
Yeah, because with the establishment of this political cartel in 2002, what happened is that the capture of every organ that we could oppose was complete, mm-hmm. including the workers' union. You saw Atuoli supporting Azimio, full blast, meaning that we're supporting you. Then as soon as Ruto wins, he looks for which side of his bread is buttered, and he jumps back. Zoe Sauti. Mm-hmm. Now I'm with this government because it's the one that is voted. Meaning, in the initial stage, he didn't support one side because of anything else he believed in, but hoping that this side wins so that I can be part of that. Now, so meaning that the workers, what you're talking about, opposition to issues that affect workers, like the 1.5 levy, the 2.75, we don't expect Kotu to be against the government because they are anyway supporting the government at the top leadership. But sooner or later, they will emerge, and I believe very soon, a group that will be able to help Kenyans be able to look at these things differently. If you remember, in the last couple of years, we've had Omutata being the one man mm-hmm. who's really been standing up and going to court on every single matter. And people are questioning, where are you getting the money from? And I'm saying, why don't you give him money? Why you question him? Because the things he's questioning are the things you'll want to question, right? So instead of questioning where he's getting the money from, give him money to go ahead.
Fred, you know, we are just at the point where we are harvesting what we have been planting as a country and cultivating even more. The truth is, in this space, we have been ethnicized so much, so that red in Mount Kenya is black in Nyanza and is yellow in Western and is purple in Northeastern, and it is not the same color. In the days of the Kiraitus of this world, if it was red in Mount Kenya, it was red for Kiraitu, and it was red for Orengo, and it was red for Mukisa, and it was red for Gitobu and all those guys. And so there was nothing like what we see today, where a higher ranking official in government, like Deputy President, telling Mount Kenya, whatever you see Raila oppose, it is good for us as Mount Kenya. Where does that lead us? It leads us to a place where some of the people who believe in that Raila also gets tired and say, let it, wacha ikurambe, because you cannot now come back and tell us, let's do this, let's do this. But the moment we are separated, I feel like I am more a Nyanza person than a Mount Kenya, and the coast people feel like I am more coastarian than, I don't care about the problems in Western. Then we are beginning to lose it to the political class. So the political class has a way of dealing with us in that sense.
Divide and rule.
If the people of Coast are saying the same thing as the people of Mount Kenya and Masai Land and everywhere, then even politicians, there is no powerful politician than the people. So the politicians will begin to look at the issues, and the debate will turn around and get to issues. The problem is they have safe haven. So either it is the people from Raila Odinga's backyard making noise about the levy, and the people of Mount Kenya are told, this is your government. You cannot, wacha wengine wapige kelele. Ule mzee wa kitandawili na watu wake. Nyinyi mulichagua hii serikali na sisi tuko ndani ya hii serikali. So when we have made all that noise and then you are told, you are called, watu wa kutupa mawe, watu wa kufanya hii, watu wa kufanya ile. A time comes when we get tired and we look at things this way and we don't want to do anything.
Going forward, do you see this changing anytime soon? Or
No,
it's
it's
to be
not
in this
changing.
state for quite a while?
It's not changing because politicians get comfortable when it does not change. So they will never allow us to change. They will never allow that situation that brings all Kenyans together to actually create that change.
Should we? Because now I was looking for a way forward out of this.
I'll tell you what, Fred. The political class knows what the masses want. Okay? The masses want to be, someone was telling me that campaign is selling hell. Because it's like, this guy who went to hell and he found people enjoying themselves. He said, no, he was told heaven, he found, people are singing. He said, no, I want to go there. When he went back, he found the devil now at the door. We need to throw him into the fire. He said, but yesterday you guys are celebrating. He said, no, we were campaigning. So Kenyans love that campaigning. And the bottom line is, we are seeing a situation of agreement now from both sides of divide. Even when it's subtle, because 10 people refusing to go to vote is subtly saying we agree with the government. So what will happen is that because we have an election in 2027, in a year's time, someone might start coming up now to be the one to oppose. Remember the conversation that was going on that when Baba goes to AU, will it be Kalonzo? Will it be Naungilo has come to the front? It was suggested by I think, Wandai. So who is going to be? Once that takes shape, we go back to the campaign trail. And we have to create a euphoria for 2027. Because
will that be the solution for us?
It will not be the solution for us. It will be the political cartel doing it again for their own gains. Yes. And one will win, and the other ones will benefit from that winning. Whichever way, they never lose.
At what point does a society's psyche change?
The point is, and this is what we should be telling Kenyans, that supporting political parties or political figures for the sake of supporting them because they come from my area is the lowest that you can go. We must up our game and start thinking, who are we supporting and what do they have to offer for me as an individual and us as a country? Is it possible that we can have some new, fresh blood in leadership? People who will be selfless. Because these characters who keep having musical chairs will never change. And as long as a country we continue giving them the upper hand to rule, it will always be for their own gain.
Okay.
Because they say that, you see the chameleon has this thing at the back. It never ends. Where I come from, they say the best way to look for a chameleon is on the that, because it never changes. So we have to change as a people and say, look, enough is enough, and start looking for people that can lead us. Okay. Would that be an overnight thing? No.
Is there an opportunity for that? Because it would appear this conversation still goes back to the politicians, because the masses have to be led.
You see, Fred, I don't think there is a way that the people will do this on their own, because the people are also human beings, and these elections happens to be people sending those who will represent them. So that is why, even if Mwathi is running away, I believe the people we send to parliament is representing our thinking. So the people who came from my constituency are representing my thinking. So that is why they have the audacity to say some of the things that I'm repeating on this table. Yeah? And it is agreeable and people clap for them. So there are times when because we don't get leaders from heaven or in some other planet, they come right from us. There are times in this country when you have seen people saying, we want our thief. So if people send their thief to represent them, and you're sitting in parliament, you want to reason with their thief, how? How does it happen? It is difficult. So for me now, there is just one thing that I think can work. If parliament goes back to being parliament to oversight the executive, then things might work. Because at that point, they will not be, you are the opposition. We are supposed to support the government. We captured power together and we are now supporting. If parliament delink themselves for a minute and say, we want to make sure that taxpayers have got value for money, how it is spent from the executive. We want to do things right. It is only parliament that I think is the weak link.
Is there opportunity for that to change with the 13th parliament? That's a question, because probably this conversation is going endlessly and not finding a way out, because I'm looking for hope somewhere. That at some point something will change, and probably it will change from this direction.
In the 13th parliament, we voted our own. And that's why I said, until we Kenyans, and I'm generalizing, we Kenyans change our thinking. You know, like Apostle Paul told people to transform your mind to think differently. Because the people that are there 100% represent us. And you look at us driving on the roads. We drive like mad people. We overlap. We block each other. You go to Kiambu Road right now, it's jammed up because the vehicles going to Nairobi have 5 lanes. They stop anybody coming back to Kiambu. What kind of thinking is that? I mean, and when you block these people, they also block your head. So they don't move and you don't move. Nobody moves. That kind of thinking we must move away from. So when on Monday I was going to do my replacement, my passport is full, so I wanted to replace it because I need to travel. And I had an appointment on Monday at 7 a.m. Landed there 6:30 in the morning. And guess what? I found over 1,000 people hanging around. It's like a marketplace. And I'm thinking, Professor Kindiki and his team, why can't they think of simple thing of being able to do that? Why should the biometrics be done at that place while we do biometrics all over the country for election? Why can't you decentralize that thing? What was it so special about it? The point is, we're not thinking. Until we start thinking and transforming our minds, nothing will change. It is true that the 13th Parliament represents our thinking 100%.
So Fred, the reason why I'm sticking with Parliament as the savior is, for example,
this Parliament, 13th.
This Parliament, for example, 2 weeks ago, we get the courts to make a decision on a certain matter about KRA, and you're realizing they recruited 1,400 plus, 800 plus were from 2 tribes. But worse than that, 100 of those are from 1 village. If parliaments don't unite to say this is wrong, including the member of parliament from that village, which had 100, it is as simple as that. Let us hear the voices. After that, we have not heard the voices from those sides saying, because that is how you cure an ailing generation. You come out and say, for sure, yes, we know we captured power, we know we are part of Kenya Kwanza, but this is not right. We need a country. Then things will turn around. But when you still have the other side pointing out and saying this is not right, and the only voice in the head of those people who benefited a lot is wale wanapendanga kupiga kelele, they oppose everything. If that still continues, then there is no change. The change will come when I am the beneficiary, yes, but I am coming out to say no. We need a country.
Do you see that happening in the 13th Parliament?
Maybe there are a few who might want to do. People like Githunguri MP are trying to do a few, but like they say, let those voices continue growing. It is only Parliament that can save this country because they are the ones allocating budget. And our corruption begins from budget. It is at that time then that we even place money that we know this one is not meant to go and do anything. We actually skew the budget to go the political way.
As we wrap up this, should we really have hope in the 13th Parliament? Because I think we've already lost hope, given the kind of conduct we've seen how they've conducted themselves on a few things, even just this week, yesterday, for example. Should we still have hope in the 13th Parliament?
The key thing is to live well, you must hope. And the bottom line is, I think, as Dede says, is that in current circumstance, it's only God touching the parliamentarians, both in the National Assembly as well as the Senate, to be able to think differently and have this country at heart, not their stomach at heart. Is it an easy task? No, it's not an easy task. But we must keep hoping. Because if we don't have hope, we will die. We must keep the hope up. But for me, the bigger appeal is that it is so easy to point a finger at someone else without realizing 3 fingers are pointing at you. Mm-hmm. So it behoves on all of us to stop stereotyping others and to start honoring everybody as a Kenyan and start thinking as an individual, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to make this better? So that in the coming years, 2027, we start influencing systems so that people are elected who will have the country at heart. Okay. Not necessarily because they have more money. I don't know whether you see in the Daily Nation a situation where a registrar of land was in court, and in his house was 4.6 million Kenyan shillings in cash, 17 high-end cars, and he had 106 parcels of land. This is one. Okay. Majority have this similar. And this is our thinking, because we praise him because he's made it. We don't question how he is elected
in the next election.
We must stop celebrating people who are stealing from us. Yeah. If we do, this country will change.
Yeah, Fred, you know, there are things we sometimes do in the political space, and many people don't think they're a big deal. For example, when we had people like, let's say, for example, the cases we had in the other parliament where the law requires you as a parliamentarian in this party, things like party discipline. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when we see it on the other side, we think it has nothing to do with us, it is actually benefiting us. And so when we get here, we begin to now see a parliament that is not doing the right thing. So in this country, we do not have any other person who wants to do what, for example, Raila Odinga was able to do and say, if this is your thinking in the party, I am resigning, let me go back, seek mandate from the people. We have a country where you and I and Mwadi are campaigning on the same platform and are promising people this is our way of doing things. And immediately after election, the next day, we are all, you and Mwadhi are decamping to the other side, which you campaign against their policies and everything. And the people are clapping and saying it has nothing to do with what is going on. And so before we know it, we find the parliament or the ruling party has a supermajority and now cannot be questioned. This is now when we are harvesting those. So if we stood together as a country and say, no, Fred and Mwadhi, if you are elected on this ticket, this is what the law requires. If you want to change your mind, yes, that is democracy, but you need to go back to your people and ask. So some of these things usually happens, and we think they have nothing to do with us, they have nothing to do with what is happening to us. But finally, they come to meet us. We are at a point where a parliament is not looking at themselves as a house of representatives, but rather representing the party leaders. So every member of parliament from Wiper wants to represent Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, and every member of parliament from ODM wants to represent Honorable Raila Odinga, and UDA the same way, and others. If they start looking at themselves as representative of the people, then we are going to go somewhere as a country.
Thank you so much, Mesha Kodede and Alex Mwadhi, political commentators, helping us understand, or try to understand, or try to even get head or tail of this conversation that we're trying to have. It is a difficult conversation, but one that we must have nonetheless. Straight to editorial comment this morning. Today, our attention is drawn to the apparent rush by government to begin contributions to the yet-to-be-rolled-out new Social Health Insurance Fund, SHIF. The move raises serious concerns about the government's priorities and its commitment to the welfare of citizens. While transitioning from the National Health Insurance Fund, NHIF, to SHIF may indeed be necessary to address flaws in the previous system and move towards a more universal healthcare approach, the manner in which it is being executed seems to prioritize financial collection over ensuring proper structures and understanding among the populace. The decision to begin deductions this month from workers' salaries for the new scheme, several months before the expected rollout, tentatively in July, is troubling. Cabinet Secretary for Health Susan Nakumicha's announcement of imminent deductions without a corresponding registration process indicates a disjointed approach to healthcare reform. The lack of clarity and information surrounding the transition to SHIF leaves many Kenyans in the dark about what the changes entail beyond the mandatory 2.75% deduction from their incomes. This lack of awareness could lead to confusion and distrust among citizens, undermining the effectiveness of the new system. What happens to NHIF, for example? For the remaining few months, over 400 private hospitals are already declining NHIF cards due to non-payment of claims. This has left a majority of citizens who are already paying for medical cover without access to the services. The situation highlights disconnect between policy objectives and practical implementation. In essence, while the transition to SHIF